The morning light, usually a clean, sharp invitation into my living room, felt off. I remember I was sitting at my usual spot, the armchair by the window, notes for my World War II lecture spread across the coffee table. Arthur Vance, history teacher. It was all so normal. I was outlining the fall of France, or maybe the Battle of Britain. Can't quite recall the exact topic now. What I do recall, vividly, is the sun. It wasn't the usual California gold. It was, well, it was flushed. A faint, reddish blush, like a bruise beginning to bloom on the sky. I remember thinking, probably just some atmospheric effect, or desert dust kicking up again. I even chuckled a little, a sound like dry leaves in my throat. News mentioned something, didn't they? Something about a rare alignment, or particles in the upper atmosphere. I nodded to myself, a small, dismissive shake of the head. Nothing to worry about, just something you noticed. Another oddity for the evening news cycle. That's what I told myself, anyway. Hours later, the sun had climbed higher, but the light maintained that sickening, rose-tinged hue. I was at my desk, click-clacking away on the keyboard, trying to make sense of some of Churchill's more convoluted speeches. The room was quiet, too quiet. I mean, usually I'd hear the distant hum of traffic, maybe a dog barking, but it was just still. I typed, and then I noticed it. My coffee cup. My absurdly specific morning coffee ritual. Always 2 centimeters to the right of the keyboard, the handle facing outwards, precisely at 3 o'clock. A silly habit, really, but it kept things in order. It brought me a small, almost childish sense of comfort. But this morning, there it was, on the left side of the keyboard. Not just nudged, but fully on the other side. And it was still warm. The ceramic was radiating a gentle heat, subtle but undeniable against my fingertips. But I hadn't made coffee, not this morning. I'd had tea, Earl Grey, and the tea mug was sitting empty on the kitchen counter, just where I'd left it. A cold draft, like someone had whispered ice across my skin, ghosted over the nape of my neck. My spine stiffened. I whipped my head around, fast, scanning the empty room. Nothing. The door was shut. The window, too. Just being absent-minded, I guess, I mumbled, the words feeling alien in my own mouth, like a bad actor trying a new line. I reached for the cup, my hand trembling just a fraction. I moved it back, 2 centimeters to the right, as if that would fix anything. I just stared at the empty space where the cold had been, a knot tightening in my stomach. The air felt heavy, suddenly, thicker. That night, after a dinner I barely tasted, I found myself drawn to the attic. An old box, undisturbed for years. Inside, a stack of VHS tapes, unlabeled, covered in dust. I pulled one out. My old VCR, a relic, still worked. I threaded the tape in, sat on the floor, and pressed play. It was static at first, then a grainy image flickered into view. My 8th birthday. A small, awkward Arthur, blowing out candles on a lopsided cake. My mother, God rest her soul, laughing beside me. My father, beaming from behind the camera. It was a haven, that memory. A safe place. I smiled. A real smile, for the first time all day. I watched it once. Then I rewound. I wanted to see it again. The joy, the normalcy, the me that was. This time, as the tape played, Everything was exactly the same. The cake, the candles, my mother's laugh. Except for one small detail. Small, but it hit me like a physical blow. In the background, in the dark corner of the room, near the old grandfather clock, there was a figure. Tall, lanky, almost gaunt, standing perfectly still. Watching. Just observing. But I didn't remember him. I couldn't place him. He wasn't at my birthday. He wasn't. A cold, sick sweat broke out on my forehead. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs. No, no way. This was wrong. My finger, quick and jerky, mashed the stop button on the VCR. I flung the tape aside. My eyes darted around the room, frantic now. I scurried to the bookshelf, yanking out a thick, leather-bound photo album. The physical one, the one with real pictures. I flicked through the pages, my fingers fumbling, until I found it. The same day, my 8th birthday. A group shot. And there he was. The tall, gaunt figure, clear as day. His hand resting on my small shoulder.
A faint, almost imperceptible smile on his face. "No, no way," I whispered, my voice raw, broken. This isn't real." What was happening? It wasn't just a video file. It wasn't just a glitch. This thing, it was rewriting the past, my past. It was injecting itself into my most cherished memories. The sheer, chilling audacity of it made the skin crawl on my arms. I stared at the photograph, the image blurring through my panicked tears. If the past, my very memories, could be changed, then what was I built on? What was real? As I stood there, frozen, staring at that terrifying intruder in my childhood, a faint scent wafted into the room. It was sweet, cloying, familiar. Birthday cake and burnt candle wax. Exactly new chonquillo kotoy. The smell intensified, thick and suffocating, wrapping around me, and with it that awful, chilling coldness, like a crypt had just opened up. The past wasn't just being rewritten, it was leaking into the present, bringing something with it, I slowly realized. There was no going back. I wasn't safe, not in my mind, not in my past. My phone felt like a dead weight in my trembling hand. I just needed something real. I opened my photo gallery, scrolling frantically through old family pictures. I landed on a picture of my mother, taken in our backyard garden, smiling warmly into the camera. She'd been gone for years. That smile always brought me peace. Every detail was familiar. Precious. The way her hair fell around her shoulders, the floral pattern of her dress, the slight tilt of her head. But then I looked closer. My breath caught in my throat. "That's odd," I heard myself whisper, the sound thin and reedy. "I don't remember Mom having a snake tattoo on her wrist." There it was, clear as day. A small, dark, winding serpent etched onto her pale skin. Elegant, almost, but it had never, ever been there before. Never. My mother, she hated tattoos, always said they were messy. The photograph, once a sacred record of a cherished memory, was now a chilling piece of evidence, proof of an invasion. And God, the question that echoed in my head, over and over, clawing at my sanity. How many other memories have been tainted? How many? I looked around the room. Pictures on the bookshelf, on the mantelpiece, on the side table. Each one seemed to be watching me now.
each one a potential silent witness to a horrifying overwrite, a new truth that was undeniably wrong. Morning had just begun, the red sun staining the world. My first action, normally, was to check emails, plan my lessons. I'd grab my journal, a simple leather-bound thing, and jot down any stray thoughts, maybe a quick note about that strange red sun phenomenon from the news. Just a habit, a way to organize my thoughts. But then, the coffee cup, and the cold breath. God, the cold breath. And those faint red dots shimmering at the edge of my vision as I walked towards the kitchen. I dismissed them then. Tired, I'd told myself. Working too much. Stress. I tried to ignore it all. I really did. I went back to my work, trying to focus on Churchill's speeches, but my mind kept drifting. That's when I started digging out the old mementos, the video, the album, trying to find comfort, trying to verify something, anything. And then it spiraled. The stranger in the video, the snake tattoo on Mom's wrist, the smell of birthday cake. It all came crashing down. The panic, sharp and cold, had finally set in. That's when I really started writing. No longer just a habit. This journal, it became my fortress. I started scribbling everything down, every single strange detail, every shifting object, every fleeting illusion, every memory that felt off, every single one. I was trying to anchor myself, to cling to what I knew was real, or what I thought I knew was real. I locked the front door, the back door. I drew the curtains tight against the red, bleeding light outside, trying to create a space, safe, isolated, mine. I don't know how long I stood there in the living room, surrounded by the ghosts of my altered past, but eventually I stumbled into the bathroom. I needed to see myself, to confirm something. I stood before the mirror, staring at my reflection. My eyes, wide and bloodshot, stared back. My hair disheveled. My face pale. I looked broken. I squeezed my eyes shut. I just needed a moment, a reset. When my reflection opened its eyes, there was a half-second delay, a tiny, imperceptible hitch.
And then it opened them. But its gaze, it was utterly cold, alien. And I saw it, just for a flicker, a faint reddish tint in the very center of its irises. My irises. It wasn't just the world outside, was it? It wasn't just my memories. It was me. My very connection to reality was unwinding. I slowly reached out, my fingers trembling, and touched the cold glass of the mirror. The chill spread through my hand, up my arm. My reflection, it didn't mirror my touch. It just slowly, deliberately raised its hand and touched the nape of its own neck. It was a gesture of self-soothing, a gesture I always made when I was stressed, when I was terrified. "You're not me," I whispered, the words barely audible, a faint breath against the glass. The reflection didn't answer. It just smiled. A slow, chilling, utterly empty smile. Its red eyes now were growing clearer, stronger. I practically fell back onto the living room floor, scrabbling for my journal. I had to write it down, everything. I flipped to the last page, the one I'd filled only hours ago, detailing my initial unease, my dismissals, my fears.
But there, scrawled beneath my own words, in my own handwriting, was a new line. I had never, ever written it. I know you're writing these things down, Arthur. I know you're trying to hold on, but you can't. And below it, intertwined with the loops and curls of my own terror-filled confession, was a crudely drawn picture. A single, red, fiery eye, watching. Utter dread. It coiled in my gut, squeezing the air from my lungs. I wasn't just being watched, I was being mocked. And it knew exactly what I was doing. Every desperate attempt to cling to sanity, every word. I reached out, my finger tracing the outline of the drawn eye. It felt damp, slightly sticky, like the ink had only just dried. I tried to rub it off, to wipe it away, but it was too late. It had seeped into the page, deeply, permanently. The red, bleeding light outside, it was still there, still pushing against the curtains I'd pulled so tight, trying to blot out the world. I mean, what was the point? But it felt like if I didn't, it would just seep in faster. Or maybe it already had. The journal, open on my lap, felt heavy. A simple, leather-bound thing. My fortress, my last line of defense, or so I told myself. I had to write everything down, every detail, every warped image, every memory that felt like a hole in my own past. I lifted my head, just a little, towards the window. Through a tiny gap in the curtains, I could see them. The old oak trees lining the street. I'd walked past them every day for years. They were always this deep, comforting green, a shade that promised shade, stability. But now the leaves, even from this distance, they weren't green, not anymore. They had this shimmer, a reddish, almost crystalline sparkle, like glass fragments catching the light. My brow furrowed. I leaned closer to the crack in the curtains. Those leaves, it was like someone had taken a brush, dipped it in something sharp and red, and painted every single one. Probably just the light, Arthur, I muttered, my voice a dry rustle against the heavy air. The red sun, it's making everything look different. Just an optical effect. Yeah, that had to be it. Yeah, that had to be it. Optics, light, just light. I tried to believe it. Honestly, I did. But the fear, that cold current, it started to ripple under my skin again. Always under my skin. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. Startled, I almost dropped the journal. No one called anymore. The lines, they'd been patchy, at best, for days. Most of my contacts were just gone, white noise. But this one, it was Sarah, my colleague, history department. She lived just a few blocks away. My hand trembled as I answered. "Arthur?" Her voice was a thin, reedy whisper, barely holding itself together. It sounded like she was screaming just to make that whisper. "Arthur, are you seeing this? I mean, the street outside my house, it's—" There was a choked gasp, a gurgling sound, and then a scream. Not a human scream, not exactly. It was too high, too sharp, like metal being torn. It tore right through my ear, right into my brain. The line went dead. Sarah, Sarah! My own voice cracked, useless. I listened to the dead air, my heart hammering against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. What's wrong, Sarah? What is happening? There was no answer, just the echoing silence of a cut-off call.
I scrambled to the window again, yanking the curtain aside with a savage hand. My breath hitched. The street, our street, the same asphalt I'd driven on 1,000 times. It wasn't just the red light. No, the tarmac. It was cracking. Wide, jagged fissures like a dry riverbed snaking across the smooth surface. And from those cracks, a faint, reddish vapor was rising, like steam, but it wasn't steam. It made the air around it shimmer, warp. It was like looking through a faulty pane of glass, everything rippling, bending. My ears started to ring, a high-pitched whine that drowned out everything else. And there was this pressure, not just in my head, but around it, like something invisible was pushing inwards, trying to squeeze my very thoughts. My knees felt weak. I stumbled back, clutching the journal to my chest. Sarah, that scream. A day passed, or maybe it was 2. Time felt like wet sand slipping through my fingers. I needed supplies, food, water. The fear of going out was immense, a heavy cloak draped over my shoulders. But the hunger, the dry rasp in my throat, it was worse. Or almost. The streets were deserted, eerily quiet, save for that constant low hum that seemed to emanate from the very air itself. Not a sound of traffic, no kids playing, no dogs barking, just that hum. And the Huit Yat, the blood sun, blazing overhead, painting everything in shades of diseased crimson. I walked, my senses hyper-alert, my hand glued to my pocket-knife, though I doubt it would do much good against whatever this was. Then I heard it, from the end of the block, a shuffling, a dragging sound, and a low, indistinct murmur. Wisps of sound, like someone trying to speak through a thick cloth. My blood ran cold. I froze, pressing myself against the wall of a darkened building, trying to become one with the crumbling brick. A figure emerged from the crimson haze at the corner. My breath caught, my stomach twisted. It was Sarah. She was limping, unevenly, shambling towards me. Her body, it was glowing. A faint, internal red light throbbing under her skin, making her form indistinct at the edges, almost translucent. Her face, it was a blank mask, distorted. Her mouth, dry and cracked, moved, but no clear words came out. Just a continuous, soft, meaningless drone. But even through the fog in my own head, through the ringing in my ears, I could hear a few words, repeated over and over, like a broken record. Arthur, Arthur, the sun, it calls. Her hand, or what was left of it, was not skin and bone. It was a shard of light, shimmering and formless, reaching out, towards me, slowly, deliberately. Fear, hot and primal, surged through me. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs. No, no way, this wasn't her. It couldn't be. No, it can't be her, I whispered, the words getting lost in the throbbing hum of the air. My eyes were glued to her, to the fading, glowing outline of my friend. This was it. This was what they called the sun creature, a twisted caricature of everyone and everything that had given meaning to my life. And she was reaching for me, to take me, to make me
like her. I turned and ran, just ran. The shuffling figure of Sarah, her glowing hand still outstretched, was burned into my mind. I didn't know where I was going, just away, away from her, away from that empty, echoing call. I tried to shout something, anything, a yell of defiance, a prayer. But my words felt stiff, heavy, as though they were being swallowed by the air itself. No sound, or only a faint, garbled croak, lost immediately. The most terrifying sound wasn't Sarah's gurgling scream on the phone. It wasn't even her whispered, repeated name, her empty plea. It was the absolute, crushing silence that descended afterward. A silence that wasn't empty at all. It was full. Full of a heavy, waiting presence, full of danger. It pressed down on me, making my head pound. The world had gone quiet, too quiet. I realized, with a sickening lurch, that the rules were breaking. The fundamental laws, sound, gravity, meaning, my own words, they were all unraveling. This hostile world, it was making human language, human communication, completely meaningless. Nothing I said mattered. If I cried for help, no one would hear. Not truly. I flung myself back into my apartment, slammed the door shut, and fumbled with the locks, sliding bolts and chains into place, as if they would offer any protection. My breath came in ragged gasps.